The Tennessee Titans fans and media are sky high on Cam Ward, and for the life of me, I don't know why they're so happy, but we'll explore that here on Locked On NFL.
The barbershop is open and Tony Wiggins has a chair for you. He's ready with some real NFL talk. The local experts of Locked On bring their expertise, and Wiggy is ready with his clippers and shears. Sit down and enjoy. The new Locked On NFL starts now. Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
It is your team every day here on Locked On NFL. I am the host of the barbershop, Tony Wiggins. We thank you for making us your first listen because it is your team every day here on Locked On NFL, and it's Monday. It is the third week of the preseason. I am joined by Julian Council of Locked On Panthers, and we have a combined, 35 years covering the NFL. And don't say nothing, Julian. 28 of them probably mine. I know I got it.
Not saying anything at all.
I know it. I know it's coming, man. But no, we're going to give it to you because we're getting close to the National Football League. So we're going to go around the league and listen to the local experts talk and speak about their teams. And then we'll do what people do in the barbershop. We'll sit back and talk crap about everything that everybody says. And that's what we're going to do here today. But I have to first tell you that we are free to subscribe to wherever you get your podcast. You make sure you tap in each and every day so you do not miss an episode. That's whether you watch or listen. All right, so we'll start at the end, and I'll tell you where we're going to end up and having some fun. Cowboys and Commanders preseason report. Both of those teams do have a lot of interesting stuff going on, so we'll slide through both Ashburn, Virginia, and wherever Dallas practices down in Texas. Trey on the move in Cincinnati. Rumors came out that Trey Hendrickson is on the block. What do they get for him? I got a team that I think he'll be perfect for. And we're going to start talking about Cam Ward and how he's lifting confidence. Julian, we sat there and early say, okay, Julian, tell me what you said when I sent that to you. What happened this weekend with Cam Ward that you could even imagine that makes everybody so happy?
Well, I'll be honest. On Friday evening, no, I was not locked in on the Titans and the Falcons preseason game. I had other commitments that evening. So when you sent me this, I was like, okay, let me go ahead and go back and look at what Cam Ward did this weekend. Read some articles, saw some highlight clips, and saw that he was 2 for 7.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, Cam Ward completed 2 passes, and he's a conversation on the show today.
Yeah,
and
of course.
The NFL on their official Twitter account has a highlight from Cam Ward, which was actually a really nice throw, but it was a drop. That's when you know it's preseason, when we're showing highlights of Cam Ward's perfect ball that's dropped by a Titans receiver during week 2 of the preseason. Can the regular season get here fast enough?
Yeah, but I will tell you this. There's some things, and you know this from covering the team, you see that other people don't. And confidence can't always be measured by things that you can point at. But I'm going to let my man Tyler Rowland tell you exactly why they are up on Cam Ward. And we joke about it. I actually do think he's going to help that franchise and put the air back into Nashville. Listen to Tyler.
There's a lot of things I'm not confident in with this Tennessee Titans football team. But the thing I'm most confident in is Cam Ward. Look, since he was drafted through the all-season workouts, training camp, into these preseason games, the joint practices, all of it, my confidence level in Cam Ward being a good player in the NFL is about as high as it could be right now. 3 main things. Number 1, his all-field leadership, being a guy who shows up at the facility at 5 a.m. That picture we saw of him after that first joint practice in Atlanta, leading the team, standing above, letting everybody know he is ready to be a leader right away in his personality and the way he carries himself, exactly what you want to see from a player off the field. And then his on-field intangibles, being able to deal with adversity, all the crap that he's dealing with around him, penalties, pushing the drive back, different things, 3rd and longs. On the field, he stays cool, calm, and collected. Nothing ever rattles him, and that's a breath of fresh air for Tennessee Titans fans at quarterback. And then finally, of course, the on-field talents. We've seen it in these practices, in these preseason games. The arm talent is out of control. The playmaking ability is exactly what you wanted to see when he was coming out of Miami. There are going to be ups and downs with a gunslinger like Cam Ward, but the off-field leadership, the on-field intangibles, and then the arm talent, I could not be more confident in Cam Ward going forward.
Now, See, he explained that. And that's what we do here on Locked On NFL, man, and period. Guys that have their finger on the pulse of the team, and that, all of that stuff, he's exactly right about that. He has the talent. The game is not too big for him. He doesn't seem to get, all excited because he's in the NFL. And he does show up at the facility. Those are all things that you want your quarterback to do. But let me put this in a nutshell. It might just be because they ain't going to have no more whoops-a-daisies, because he is not describing Will Levis. And when you have had that in your organization, the second you get something competent, it feels like you hit a home run.
Well, he did mention Cam Ward being a gunslinger, and I would rather have someone who's a gunslinger and not afraid to try to fit into tight windows than someone who's afraid to try to make those plays and push it down the field. But when you have a gunslinger, you also are going to get a handful of whoopsie daisies throughout the season. Now, it may not be I can't say the word, some of the things that Will Levis did last year, which I'm still just baffled by the decision making, like the game against Chicago week 1, how he thought that was the right play to make. Like, Cam's not going to do that. He's going to throw some picks, though. Like, it's going to happen. And, like, it's totally fine because he's learning how to play the position. And Brian Callahan, if he sticks around past this season, is going to have to rein that in moving forward with Cam. But yeah, like, there should be excitement when it comes to what he can do with the arm talent, of course, and then the leadership. Like, that's something that if you talk to anybody around the Miami program last year, they talked about. That's what he came in day one and did. He became the alpha. And I know, Wig, you're an FSU guy, and the guy you guys ended up with at quarterback last year certainly did not provide that. And we'll always wonder what FSU would have been last year had they gotten Cam Ward and gotten that leadership, which would have been kind of analogous to what Jordan Travis gave them when he was down in Tallahassee. So that's something I think that is vitally important, especially for a young guy. I mean, he's a little bit older of a prospect going to Tennessee, where they're in need of some of that leadership with guys like Derrick Henry no longer being around. Of course, Ryan Tannehill's no longer there. AJ Brown's been a couple of seasons. Like, they need that kind of alpha in the room, and that's what Cam Ward can be. So yeah, there's a reason to be excited as far as just like the potential there. But has he done anything on the field that matters that should have people that excited? Probably not, but it is a preseason. Everyone's going to have fun, and the NFL sells hope better than any other league in America, at least.
Yeah, no doubt about that. Look, there's another quarterback I'm really, really excited about. The difference between him and Cam Ward is I don't think Cam Ward is insulated organizationally the way Drake May is currently, especially with the addition of Mike Vrabel as the head coach and bringing back Josh McDaniels. I want to make sure we give this the attention it deserves, because I wanted to hit Drake May. But you're very, very more familiar with Drake May by a mile than I am. Let's talk about him, and we'll do that at the top of segment number 2 here on Locked On NFL. All right, this episode is brought to you by BetterHelp. These days, it feels like there's advice for everything: cold plunges, gratitude journals, screen detoxes. But how do you know what exactly works for you? With so much information online about mental health and wellness, it can be overwhelming to figure out what's true and what will actually help. That's where talking to a licensed therapist through BetterHelp can make all the difference. You get real, personalized guidance instead of just guessing based on something you saw on social media. You know, everybody has these catchwords: narcissist and depression and healing. They all tell you all of those things, but none of them are really, really qualified to give you a diagnosis. And with over 30,000 therapists, BetterHelp is the world's largest online therapy platform, serving more than 5 million people, and they are qualified to help you get through. So talk it out with BetterHelp. Our listeners get 10% off their first month at BetterHelp.com/lockedon. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon. Rolling along here on Locked On NFL in the barbershop with my man Julian Council of Locked On Panthers, who is also, you know what Carolina is, it's right there in ACC country, and he is a UNC fan. There's another quarterback I wanted to get to, but I wanted to give it his due diligence and make sure we covered it properly. I like what I've seen from Drake May so far, and so does Nick Cattle's up with Locked On Patriots. I want you to hear this.
The expectations for the Patriots offense this week was that it was going to be a pretty tough assignment. A tough assignment against a Vikings defense that is absolutely no joke. And on Wednesday, the first joint practice between the Pats and the Vikings, it was certainly a roller coaster, up and down type day for the offense, including the quarterback. But I'm here to tell you, from what I have read, from what I have heard, Drake May, all things considered, was okay. He was okay in this joint practice. He didn't melt down. He didn't look overwhelmed. He wasn't a complete scattered mess. He was okay.
Okay, so Jaden Daniels will spoil everybody. Being a top 6 quarterback, being a dude getting MVP consideration. And we'll have to see how it pans out in year 2. But ideally, the way you want a quarterback to be brought along is exactly the way the New England Patriots seem to be bringing along Drake May.
Well, you have to think about last year. I mean, Jaden Daniels had Terry McLaurin, and he had a stable situation, which is crazy to think that Washington now is considered a stable situation after the 20 years of just ineptitude under Dan Snyder. And you also look at Bo Nix out there with Sean Payton in Denver. He had a stable organization, had receivers. Michael Penix, when he came in late last season, he had Drake London, he had Kyle Pitts, he had guys to throw to. Drake May had Kayshon Boutte. And he sometimes had Jalen Polk. It wasn't a stable situation last year in New England. And, of course, Gerard Mayo is no longer the head coach there, right or wrong. I certainly think it's an upgrade to have Mike Vrabel knowing what he's done already as a head coach in this league. So the situation that Drake walked into was not ideal at all. Whether it was the weapons, the guys in front of him, they have gone out and they've added pieces on the offensive line. Of course, Will Campbell from LSU going 4th overall at offensive tackle. They brought in Stephon Diggs. There were some questions off the field, but that seems not really be a question about him on the field as he's coming back from that ACL. Like, I think Drake is a stud. And I mean, obviously, I'm a little bit biased. The guy went to high school 3 miles away from where I sit. I mean, I'm a Carolina guy, so I was out there watching every single snap that he played when he was in Chapel Hill. Like, I've talked to people who've been in the Charlotte area for a long time and about some of the quarterbacks we had come out of the city. Like Chris Leak is the guy who set every record in high school football in the state of North Carolina. He went to Florida, won a national championship, and no, it was not a 2-quarterback system with Tim Tebow. Tebow came in on short yardage downs. Leak was the guy every other down and led him to a national title. We had him. We had Joe Cox, who played at Georgia. I mean, there's been some pretty good quarterbacks in this area. And I had this guy tell me he's never seen a better quarterback in high school football than Drake May. And when I saw what Drake did in Chapel Hill after what Sam Howell had done, and I've seen so far the flashes, like it holds up because I had never seen anybody better than Chris Leak. I wasn't around to go out there and check out Drake. I don't go to high school games on Friday, but I think you give him the right system and foundation, which I think they're building now in New England, like they're going to have something there. You're going to need it, especially in that division with Josh Allen, who's going to be probably the king of that division for a while now. But yeah, I like Drake. I think he's got the goods. It's just, will he have an opportunity to show off those goods with the right people around him? Because no quarterback in this league can have success if he doesn't have an offensive line or people to throw the ball to.
Glad you mentioned Chris Leak because it gives me a chance as a Seminole fan to remind people. They always say Tim Tebow won two national championships. Chris Leak threw for 300 yards in the national championship game against Ohio State. Chris Leak is the all-time leading passer at University of Florida. I'll just leave that there. Everybody always wants to give Tebow. You don't have to man. Tebow is great. You don't have to give him credit for other stuff that he didn't do. He did enough.
They had that Netflix show about the Urban Meyer Gators, and they're out here trying to act like Chris Leak was some bum. It's like, come on, man. Come on now. Let's not do that.
Crazy. A couple of weeks ago, it was a little bit more than a couple of weeks ago, Trey Hendrickson showed up, and everybody thought, okay, that's the end of that. It came out yesterday that Trey Hendrickson's been on the block and people are trying to trade him. So we're going to spend some time talking about him and where I think is a perfect fit for him. But first, let's talk about what the guy said when he actually came back into camp.
But Adam Schefter on the Pat McAfee show talking about the progress essentially that's been made with the Trey Hendrickson deal, saying that they're essentially in line on years, on money, overall money, but there is a bit of a gulf on guarantees. It does sound like the Bengals may have gotten some guaranteed money into their offer for year 2 of the deal, but not enough for what Trey Hendrickson is looking for, as he's looking for multiple years of assurances and guaranteed money in the deal.
Look, the Bengals aren't the first team to do this. The Bengals just seem like they do this and other stuff all the time. Now they're going to trade him. You see how quickly things can change. What do you think about this situation? Is a mistake on Cincy's part?
Yeah, I think it is a mistake, especially when you look at the guy that he has drafted. It took a while for him to get signed, with Shamar Turner, right, out of
Yeah.
A&M. There's two Shamars. I always get them mixed up, but
Yeah.
like he didn't do anything as far as pass rush ability at A&M that would have me that excited if I'm the Bengals. And I think he would benefit from working with a guy like Trey Hendrickson. But to me, man, it doesn't make any sense. Like you make Joe Burrow happy by bringing back his receivers, by giving him his deal. That they were able to bring back their defensive tackle, whose name escapes me right now. He's a Clemson guy. It just is weird that a dude who has had 34 sacks the last 2 years, who has been really the only piece of your defense worth talking about,
Right.
that there's this gulf. It's just crazy to me, honestly. And I don't know why he showed up in the first place if the deal was not going to be in place. Right? Like that's the weird thing, because they talk about, oh well, according to Schefter, when I guess he went on Pat McAfee show, they're close to all this. There's just one last piece. Well, why show up if it's not close to being done? If I'm Trey Hendrickson, I would have stayed my ass down in Florida instead of gone up there to Cincinnati and been out there practicing. So we'll see. I've seen some of the FanDuel and other betting sites talking about they're not really favoring him going to another team. They think he'll figure it out in Cincinnati. I've long been of the belief that he'll stay in Cincinnati this season. But now that they actually have opened up trade offers, which I guess is a way of, hey, okay, Trey, we'll see how the rest of the league values you as far as draft compensation and how much they're willing to pay you. And I don't think they're going to get a ton as far as contract wise goes, because if you got it, or as far as compensation wise goes, because if you have to sign them to a big deal with a lot of guaranteed money, you're not going to be giving up that much as far as draft capital goes, as far as who the other team is going to be acquiring him. So yeah, it's just doesn't make a lot of sense to me for Cincinnati, because if they don't have Trey Hendrickson, then what do they have as far as a pass rush, as far as like just defensive studs?
You're right. And people will look back and say they still miss Jesse Bates, who they let go to Atlanta because they didn't want to pay him. And if you do the same thing with Trey, they're going to say the same thing. And the funny part is the teams that they're mentioning are teams that don't expect, that aren't really expected by a lot of people to win a lot. I've even seen the Carolina Panthers mention. Here's my thing. There's a team that's perfect for them. And the reason why is because they already have one really, really good pass rusher. But that guy's going to be on the fifth-year option next year. Aiden Hutchinson will play his fourth NFL season this year, and he'll be under the fifth-year option next year. That's 2 seasons to work something out. Those are 2 seasons that you can pay Trey Hendrickson, as opposed to going back and signing Zadarius Smith. Check this out from my man Matt Derry with Locked On Lions.
All right, there it was. Brad Holmes talking pretty openly and honestly about Zadarius Smith. That's one thing I love about Brad. I love about Dan Campbell. These guys don't duck questions. They don't not answer questions. And Brad flat out said, yeah, there's interest on both sides. What Brad didn't want to say, I'll say, Zadarius Smith doesn't want to be in training camp. He's 32 years old. Why does he want to be out there in 90-degree weather sweating in training camp when he knows if he stays in shape, come a couple of weeks, he'll be back here? I truly believe the Lions are going to give him a contract, and he will be back on this team.
My man running around right now with his girlfriend, Cash Doll. Shout out to Cash Doll and her pretty self, and Zadarius Smith being all over Instagram and all of that stuff. I leave him where he is, man. He having a good time. She's a beautiful woman. Let him go ahead and have fun, man. Trade for Trey Hendrickson and pay him that money.
Yeah, well, Matt is right. A lot of these veteran guys don't want to be out there at training camp, and it makes really no sense because, like, what, Jadeveon Clowney, he's still available. Who is the safety who used to be out there in Denver for all those years? Who was in Atlanta last year?
Justin Simmons.
Yeah, he's still available. Like, there's plenty of dudes who, like, I mean, Stephon Gilmore clearly can play. It's just like, nah, we'll just wait. Yeah. We'll wait until the end of this month and probably next week to sign a deal. Maybe wait a week or two in the regular season. Like, they're staying in shape, so that makes sense. But yeah, man, like if they went out and got Trey Hendrickson, like that would make a lot of sense. So there could be another guy opposite of Hutch. And I think Zadarius Smith is a nice enough player, but he ain't Trey Hendrickson.
No.
And to have those two guys, especially with, I think there's going to be a shift in Detroit this year with no more Ben Johnson, him now being Chicago within the division. I think they're going to probably go to being more of a defensive first type of team. And they had a bunch of those injuries last year. And I know Aaron Glenn's no longer there, but Kelvin Shepard, who was the linebacker coach the last couple of years, he's taken over. So the scheme is going to be the same. And for really any team that's going to acquire Trey Hendrickson, he's been throughout his career in New Orleans and Cincinnati, he's been a hand in the dirt 4-man front kind of defensive type of player on the edge. So it's not like he's been asked to stand up a lot. So a 3-4 probably doesn't suit him. The Lions scheme would fit him certainly. So that's something to take into account for any team that would be acquiring him. And I think that could make a lot of sense. Now, are they going to hold off on giving Aiden Hutchinson a deal? No, that ain't going to happen. This guy's going to get paid a ton of money this offseason. They have a lot of cap space according to overthecap.com. They're at $47 million right now heading into the season. So they'll have some carryover for next year where they should have a decent amount where they will be able to sign Hutch to what will probably be the highest paid defensive end in the history of the NFL at that point in time. And then they can have Hendrickson be creative with whatever deal they give him this year and not really part that much ways with draft capital. So that would make a lot of sense to me, but I still feel like Cincinnati is going to find a way to work that out, even if Mike Brown is still, being what Mike Brown has been, which is kind of cheap.
Yeah, no doubt about it. You mentioned Terry McLaurin, and I can't help myself. I'm going to talk about him, Washington, and the Dallas Cowboys. Give you a little NFC East primer here in segment number 3. We'll do it in just a second here on Locked On NFL. Today's show is presented by Yahoo Fantasy. It's the best time of the year. NFL kickoff is almost here, and that means fantasy football season is back in full swing. And this year, Yahoo Fantasy is turning things up with a fantasy football experience like never before. This year, me and my crew at Showtime and Playmakers, we're right there on Yahoo Fantasy because that's where we've been for 18 years. We start drafting next week. To celebrate 28 years of fantasy football greatness, Yahoo Fantasy is dropping 28 big new features over 28 days throughout August. To kick it off, they just dropped Yahoo Fantasy Guillotine Leagues, a killer new way to play fantasy football on Yahoo, where the lowest scoring team gets eliminated each week until there's one team left standing. With the season around the corner, now's the time to get your league together and give the new mode a try. If you're more into the classics now, you can still play head-to-head private leagues or join public leagues. All right, here's what you do. Stay tuned for more killer announcements and start playing Yahoo Fantasy Football now at yahoofantasy.com/locked on. All right, lots going on in the National Football League on and off the field. Terry McLaurin came off of the PUP list in Washington. Doesn't mean it kind of hints that he's signaling and go ahead and coming back and playing. All I keep hearing about is this Peters dude and how tough of a negotiator he is. Marty Schottenheimer made a mistake when he took over the Washington franchise years ago. He came in and he dressed down Darrell Green. You dressed down a dude that at 35 years old beat Champ Bailey in a foot race, and Champ was 24. You dressed down a guy that never cursed. And they started out the season 2-8. And I think they finished the season 8-8 because he realized too late, the late, great Marty Schottenheimer, I will say, by the way, sometimes you make a mistake when you come into an organization and you pick on the wrong dude, for an example. I think that's exactly what's going on in Washington, and they probably need to reevaluate that. And you can be tough with some people, not everybody. Listen to what David Harrison has to say about Terry McLaurin.
Another day out here in Ashburn, another new development in the Terry McLaurin situation. This is David Harrison of the Locked On Commanders podcast, and out here on Saturday for what we thought was going to be kind of a light, breezy, early morning practice. News coming out before practice that Terry McLaurin has been activated off of the physically unable to perform or PUP list. Was not seen out here at practice. Not a big surprise as the team tends to handle injury situations with a ramp-up period. That's exactly what head coach Dan Quinn said that the team is doing. But it's also hard to deny that there is this little nagging in the back of everybody's minds on whether or not removing Terry McLaurin off the PUP was another part of the tactics between the two sides to getting Terry McLaurin on the field, new contract or new contract. So for more on that, my opinions on that and everything else Washington Commanders related, make sure you check out the Locked On Commanders podcast 5 days a week, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Sometime in the barbershop, you can say things and people think you're joking. I am not playing. David Harrison wearing the hell out that shirt. If I would have saw it on the rack, I would have been like, I can't pull it off. He pulled it off, and I might go look for it and get me one. I like that shirt. But go ahead,
Is he
man.
not hot, man? I was up in Virginia this past weekend. Come on now.
Hey, man, he don't look like he's sweating, man. David's always cool. See how we did that? He probably thought I was throwing shade, but now I'm telling you, no, man, he's always cool. But he makes a great point about McLaurin. There's just some guys you play with and some guys you don't, man. And I think this is one of the dudes you just don't do that to.
Yeah, it's tough. I don't know, man. I don't know what's going to happen here. Like, he is under contract, so like I understand the thought process of like you still got a deal. Like they don't see him as being up for a deal. I understand from Terry's perspective that he wants to cash in, and he's not getting any younger. And if he can cash in now, probably makes more than he will next offseason. And we'll see how it plays out. I think just as far as culture wise in Washington, how talent wise, and for Jaden Daniels' sake, that it would make a lot of sense to get this deal done. And the fact that he has been taken off the PUP list, maybe that means he'll be out there week 1. Maybe it means he'll just be sitting out and continue to hold in. We'll see how that plays out. But man, it just does not. Don't love the situation at all.
No,
especially with all the good vibes that have been this offseason with Washington. Hate that like this is something that's kind of clouding their upcoming season.
Yeah, and for me, if he plays well this year, which I think he will, and you don't want to pay him, you either going to have to franchise tag him next year and pay him a bunch of money and then try to work something out with, or you just let him go at 31 years old. And you are giving a gift horse to either the Baltimore Ravens or, watch this, a team that could use a tough guy like that at wide receiver. Oh, maybe one that has a running back and a young tight end that personify. He goes to Las Vegas, and now they have 3 guys like that. All of them are hard to catch. All of them are hard nosed. This is just exactly how certain teams sit back and just collect people that make them better, while other teams just don't get it. Usually, when we talk about teams that don't get it, we go to Dallas and talk about the Dallas Cowboys. However, one thing they have done well, and I have been on record saying this, they always seem to have pass rushers, and they got another one. And I struggle with his name sometimes. He comes out of Boston College, and
out of it as a Rocco.
And you knew who I was talking about when I said it, and that's who they're talking about too. Check this out.
Ezra Rocco is a guy that I definitely don't want to skimp on snaps. I want to give him opportunities, but I'm also excited about Sam Williams. I'm also excited about Marshawn Neal, and I've also paid a lot of money for Fowler to be here, and that's not even including the guy whose contract we're waiting to get signed. So it's just a position that I had high hopes for, but I actually came in here and I think they've exceeded those hopes, because all the guys, we need one of these guys to hit. It feels like kind of all of them are hitting in some form or fashion.
Yeah, you're still looking for that other guy to be like the bona fide guy that can play opposite of Micah Parsons and be like the DeMarcus Lawrence, right? Like be the other guy that can consistently win one-on-one matchups. My guess is long-term, it's probably going to be Donovan Ezra-Rocco. It might not be that way as a rookie, but you do have options.
Look, all that's well and good. You say, man, they got all these pass rushers. Why ain't it working? It ain't working because they can't stop the run. That's why it ain't working. And nobody's in a rush to give their offense back the ball, because when Dak is healthy, they are pretty explosive on offense, but teams play keep away by running the football. So Dallas may be good at this, but they're not good at everything. But you got to give credit where credit is due. Your man, Ezra-Rocco, I like him. I think he's going to be a really, really good player. He terrorized Florida State for a couple of years at Boston College. I think he's a real good player.
Yeah, he's going to hit, I think. In 22, he was really good. It was banged up in 23 than last year. I had an outstanding season. I felt like he was a first-round talent. Of course, didn't go until the second round there for Dallas, which, I mean, they got a couple of steals there. I don't know how Ravel is playing a guy at ECU who had tore his ACL early last season, but I thought that was a guy who had a first-round talent. Just the injury kind of really held him back from where I think he would have really shined out last year. So, yeah, Ezra-Rocco, good player. I mean, Dallas, it's going to come down to, their ability to be able to get off the field when it matters. And then also, once they get to the playoffs, which I think they'll get to the playoffs, can Dak Prescott make the plays? Because, that's just really been the thing. Like, defensively, they were embarrassed a couple of years ago against the Packers. There's been other times where it's like, all right, Dak, we need you to step up here. Hasn't necessarily made the plays that have been needed to make or be made in those situations. So, yeah, I mean, that's really what it is with Dallas, man. Like, I'm just kind of talk to me in January, because I think this is going to be a team that bounces back with Dak being healthy. Schottenheimer, whatever, don't really have any strong opinions about how that's going to go with him being the head coach. I just know that Parsons, they'll get that figured out eventually, because Jerry, he always gets it figured out. These guys, we have this every other year, it feels like, with Dallas. So a star player wanted his money, Jerry not doing it, then Jerry eventually does it. As long as Dak's healthy, Micah gets his money, they'll be fine. It's just, what are they going to do in January when it matters most?
Some of the best work the teams can do is done when it's quiet. It's always quiet, it seems like, with the team you cover, Carolina Panthers. Give me 90 seconds of telling me and all of us, how's it going, man? How is the Dave Canales rebuild with Bryce and the defense. Give us, we're checking the temperature, and you're our thermostat there. Tell us how it's going in Carolina.
Well, people are upset right now because the offense went out and put up a stinker in the 2 series they had on Saturday. They only played 6 plays. Now, granted, they were able to have joint practice on Thursday in Houston, and Dave Canales, he came out and said he wanted them to earn another series, which I felt like was an interesting quote. And he also didn't talk about how he was pleased with what he was seeing so far, but they're not going to play on Thursday in the preseason finale, which I think is going to be the case for most starters around the league. So yeah, there's some concern there. It's preseason. Like for me, I'm not getting super concerned about any of that. There's not any significant injuries defensively. When Derek Brown went out of the game against Houston on Saturday, they couldn't stop the run again, which was a massive problem last year. I'm just kind of waiting to see what happens in week 1. Like to me, I think they've added some pieces that certainly should have them being competitive, more like the team they were in the second half of last season. It's just extremely hard to tell right now. And I'm just like not somebody who really makes a lot out of anything that happens during training camp of the preseason. Like if it were up to me, I would completely ignore all of it and then show up week 1. But that's not what we do here.
No, that's not what we do. You're right, man, because we are your team every day here on Locked On NFL. Of course, Locked On Panthers, also where Julian is, all around the National Football League. And I know most of y'all will be doing your fantasy drafts this weekend. So we want to make sure that you make NFL fantasy draft season special for you. And Locked On Fantasy Football's podcast host, Vinny Iyer and Michelle Majuk will help you do that. Listen every day to prep for your fantasy draft and become the most informed manager so you can take home your league's trophy this season. Find Locked On Fantasy Football on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. You guys take care of each other, man. We got Monday here. We only got a couple more of these before we get to the real deal and talk real football, games that actually matter. You all matter to us, and we appreciate you spending 32 minutes with us here today. Thank you very much. We'll see you next time.